Mario Bauer.
Normally when I'm on stages like that, I talk about international growth and what to do not to lose the soul. And with Vapiano, we opened 34 countries, and we have been very good in that. And believe me, the speech, what I normally do about growth and internationalization, I really know it by heart. And I wouldn't be so nervous than today, because I'm telling a story what I haven't told before. And that makes me nervous, got sweaty hands and couldn't sleep last night, because I want to tell you a story about teddy bears, but I come to that a little bit later. I want to tell you a story beyond borders, a story how to step outside of the comfort zone. But as I told you, it's the first time I'm doing that, so I need your help, I need your energy. I saw yesterday night how much energy you have and how much help you can give. So who is willing to help me? Say aye. A little bit more, say aye. Good. So I need you to stand up. I need to see you eye to eye when I tell this story, and anyhow you have enough time to sit later on. So every story starts like that, you know that. Once, and then a storyteller who is normally older than myself comes on stage and tells a story. So I want to tell you a story in 3 parts. And don't worry, you don't need to stand all the time, but now I need you. The first part is about thresholds, about borders. There's a word in German, and indeed it's only in German. It's a word who describes the fear of thresholds and borders. It's that fear when you stand in front of the border and you don't really know how to walk through this border. The word is called Schwellenangst. And it means the fear of these thresholds and borders. And in every ancient myth and fairy tale which you grow up, your grandmother, your father, your mother, all the fairy tales you heard in your life, there's always the main character who has to walk through such a threshold. It can be a dark forest, a river, stormy river, or a high mountain. But not just these old stories, also the Disney movies and almost every Hollywood blockbuster has that scene where the main character becomes the hero, where the main character evolves in the story. So how many of you know Lord of the Rings, have seen it or read it? Say aye. Okay, that's quite a lot. So you remember the boy, Frodo, the main character. And at the beginning of the story, he's in his comfort zone. He's in his village with his friends, playing, and his life progresses. But then he gets this call from a journey, and he feels he needs to take the call, but he has the doubts, as every boy would have, to leave his village, to leave his family, to leave his friends, and go on a journey. But obviously, he takes the journey, otherwise we wouldn't have read the book and we wouldn't have seen the movie. Because just imagine what would happen if Frodo would just stay home. How many of you would have bought that book? Frodo sits at home, grows up, becomes a nice boy, blah, 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 blah. So definitely not 3,000 pages and 9 hours of Hollywood blockbuster movie. So, but it's not just the main character of a movie. Each and everybody of us has this decision in life where we move to another city, or where we get a call and say, this is not the right thing what I'm doing right now, I should change my job. I should proceed an idea what I have. And everybody of us has this fear, this Schwellenangst. You have it, you have it, and you have it. And I definitely have it. And even Henry, who was on stage here, and all the speakers, and all the great leaders of this company, everybody of us has it. Because it's human to have this fear. But if we recognize this threshold and border when we stand in front of a decision in our life as a place of chance, then it becomes an opportunity. And you heard before, Olo, and I didn't even know his speech. At the end of the day, he talked about the same thing. He talked about how he fails and how he proceeds by taking another chance, by taking another risk. So I want to tell you 2 stories where I have done that, and then I hope you share some with me. I had a great job, very comfortable job, made a lot of money, was in executive board, great company, great team. I know my job inside out. I could do it during sleeping. But I somehow felt a call in my life that I need to do something else, that I need to move on. And for 2 years, I was standing on this step. And I thought, okay, should I do it? But then you always walk back because it's so cozy here. Huh? It's the comfort zone. It's the old pattern. Everybody knows what is going on around here. Yeah? But then you always you look out and you see, okay, maybe. And you all have these voices of your friends and your family and your wife and your girlfriend telling you this or that, but you listen to your inner voice of what you really want to do. So I made this step. I'm now cooking ketchup. You had it maybe at breakfast. And I can do funny things like being here on stage and whatever else evolves in the future between us. And it was the right decision, but it took me two years. And I just want to tell you that it's completely normal to do that. And Ola also shared before, again, not a line-on story, how difficult it is to realize that a relationship doesn't work. I was married for 11 years, and the first 7, 8, maybe 8.5 years was fun, great fun. But then I realized that there's something missing. It's not a family. And it takes you so long time to realize that you're in the wrong relationship, caught in the wrong relationship. So what I like you to do now, and I've never done that before, I hope it works. I hope you trust me a little bit. I would like you to close your eyes, and I can see you, so don't cheat. Don't cheat. Some are cheating. You're cheating. You're cheating. So please close your eyes, guys, trust me. And remember a situation in your life. It can be a couple of years ago, or it can be just a couple of weeks ago, where you were challenged, where you needed to step outside of your comfort zone. The biggest changes in our life when we leave our families, when we grow up, when we go to study in a university, we know that it's the right thing to do, but we leave our friends from the childhood. Or when you took a new job, when everybody told you, you have such a great job in this bank and you will make a career, why are you doing all these crazy things and going to this AmRest company, they're all crazy there. So this situation in your life, or when you were, each of you had several relationships, I guess. Remember that moment when you realized that the relationship you're currently in is maybe not the wrong one. And just picture this fear you had to change it, and how you handled that fear, and how you tried to fight that fear. But at the end of the day, at one situation, you took one step. And it's always the first step what is the most difficult one. And you took this first step into the new chapter of your life. What made you grow, what made you become like Frodo on his journey, and that's why you're all here. So thank you so much for the trust of part 1. So let's sit down. I also need to sit a little bit. So let's come to part 2 of the story. Part 2 I need to read. I thought it's more nice to read. Let me click to part 2. 10,000 things. A friend of mine, I met a storyteller on the way, because you might imagine that this story, what I'm telling you here today, I got inspired to do that, but I needed to get professional help. And I met a guy basically on the street, because he's a storyteller. There's really people out there, believe it or not, who walk from one city to another and go on the market squares and tell the old story, the way how it was done a couple of 100 years ago. And I met him, his name is Christian, and I told him my teddy bear story, what you're going to hear later on, and said, can you help me to frame that story a little bit, to find old stories out there in the ancient myth, or in the Buddhist world, or in the Muslim world, or in the Farsi world, in the Persian world, stories what tell the same message. So he found an old story for myself, what he modified a little bit. It's a Buddhist story, and it's called 10,000 Things. If we find ourselves sitting in a room near a window, a border to the outside world, often the first things that we see is our own reflection. And you see here the boy, and when you see really close, you see his reflection. As soon as we see our own reflection in a mirror, we check out our appearance, we check out if there's a little bit breakfast around our mouth, or maybe we have forgotten some toothpaste. And how often you see people looking at themselves when they pass by a window, adjusting their ties or their hair, and see only their reflection in it. The window, therefore, becomes a mirror which is reflecting their image rather than showing them everything what is beyond the glass. But if we could see beyond our own reflection, we would be able to see much more. We would be able to see everything other than ourselves, the world beyond. We would be able to see 10,000 things, everything that is not ourselves. So now I want to come to the final part to my teddy bear story, because that's why you're here, I hope, to hear my teddy bear story. So this is the story I feel comfortable with, because the teddy bear story I told already several times. So how many of you want to hear the teddy bear story? Say aye. Aye. Good. So for the last point, surprise, surprise, I need you to get up again. So, you see here, there's a couple of more teddy bears waiting. So big thanks to everybody who was involved in sourcing a couple of 100 teddy bears here. So the teddy bear story. I'm really lucky, and I travel a lot, and I'm invited to a lot of conferences, and I hear great keynote speaker. But at one moment I heard amazing keynote speaker. He's a blind mountain climber. So just picture that. I don't know how many of you climb mountain. That's already very crazy. But to climb mountain when you're blind, that's really crazy. I don't even know how that could work. Anyway, so he did a great speech, very inspiring speech. But what really caught my attention was in the Q&A session. They asked him, Andy, are you never afraid? I mean, you're a blind mountain climber. And he said, sure, I'm scared all the time. And they asked him, so what was the most scary moment you had in your life? Which mountain was it? Was it the Kilimanjaro or the Mount Everest? And he said, no, the most scary moment when I was 6 years old. So therefore you need to know how Andy grew up. Andy was born in a very small village in the Austrian countryside in the Alps. Just a couple of houses, maybe 80, 90, 100 people living there. And he was born blind. And when the village realized that, the priest and the mayor, you know, in the small villages, you always have the two main guys in the village, the priest and the mayor, they knocked the door, and Andy's father opened the door. And they said, we need to talk to you. He said, sure, come on in, have a tea. And Andy was crying as a baby in the back. So the priest and the mayor said, look, this doesn't work here. You need to give your son away. You need to give him to the next big city where they know how to deal with blind kids. He needs to have a special education. He needs to have a kindergarten where he learns the special way how to read. He needs how to use a dog, etc., etc. And definitely he cannot stay here in that village because it's dangerous. We're living here in the mountains. He will crawl around or walk around and just fall down. He will die. And the father didn't even took him 2 seconds to think about it. He said, no, I will keep my son here. And he was a very simple man, but he had a very big and good heart. So he said, I will just raise my son as every other kid here. So that's why Andy learned how to hike, and that's why Andy also doesn't know how to read the special, Braille, thank you, because he was never in school. But then in one moment, he went to his dad and he said, Dad, I'm scared. And the dad said, why are you scared? And Andy said, every time when I stand in front of a door and want to open that door and enter a room, I'm scared. And his dad said, why? And Andy said, because I always think that behind this door, there could be things what hurt me. There could be ghosts or dangerous things, or I don't know, I cannot see it. So Father, you need to understand that I'm scared. You're not blind. You see what is behind the door. And the father said, son, I don't really understand. I don't really understand why you see only the dangerous things what could happen to you. You could open the door. It could be a room full of teddy bears. What about that? And that was the moment, what Andy said, when he realized that it's his decision when he's in front of a border or a door, what to imagine beyond that. And you remember the beginning of the story when we talked about the fear of thresholds, of border, the Schwellenangst. We all have it, and Andy had it, and we are blessed that we at least see or imagine. But what I want to tell you with that, it's not about what we see, it's about what is in our head. Because the most dangerous things when we make a decision is to make a decision based on fear. And the next time when you're confronted with a situation in your life and you just pictured it, when you need to move on and when you're scared and when you stand beyond such a border, I want you to remember the story of this blind boy in the small village in the Alps and how he opened the door and found a room full of teddy bears. Thank you so much. Thank you.